First, thank you for having me. Could you, for my listeners and viewers, please introduce yourself?
It's a pleasure to receive you here in Nicosia, so a warm welcome. My name is Marilena Raouna. I'm the Deputy Minister for European Affairs of Cyprus.
And where are we today?
We are in the building of the Secretariat for the Cyprus Presidency of the Council of the European Union in the first half of 2026. We just moved in fact.
Yeah, actually, when we were walking up the stairs, you were telling me that I might be the first official, well, I'm not a head of state, but a kind of first official guest?
Precisely. You're the first journalist. I would have said foreign journalist, but any journalist, because no Cypriot journalist has been here. So yes, I take it as a sign of good luck to have you here.
We'll see. I hope so. So you are preparing now your presidency. It's interesting to talk about that because in that case we also understand Cyprus' priorities. Mm-hmm. So could you explain what will be on the agenda? What are you preparing right now?
So just to say that this is the second time that Cyprus will be assuming the presidency. The first time was in 2012. At that point, I had the privilege to serve in Brussels at the permanent representation. So we are assuming the presidency not as a new member state this time, but with the experience of 20 years of membership, with a lot of excitement to deliver on the European agenda, together with our trio partners. In our case, it is Poland and Denmark. I think what is important and interesting at the same time is that we are assuming the presidency at an important juncture for the European Union itself. So the way I see it, the European Union, our common home, has over the last few years been through repeated crises. So we've had the economic crisis, we had the pandemic, we had the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we've had the migratory crisis. So through this crisis, the European Union, despite the challenges, has delivered, I believe, and it's important to remind our citizens that the European Union is a project that it might not be perfect because it is an evolutionary project. That's how it was intended by its founding visionaries. But it is a project that continues to evolve and deliver for its citizens. And so I believe that the European Union currently is at an inflection point where it is called to evolve, to change, to become more resilient, to become more effective, to deliver more for its citizens, and at the same time to be geostrategically the EU to be a global actor. So there are a few crucial processes that are underway, as I'm sure you know, currently in Brussels. We are having the discussion about the strategic agenda. It will be adopted at the June European Council on the 17th of the month. So this is a very important European Council. It's the discussion about the future of the European Union. We are having two very important reports that are coming. One has come out, the Letta report. It was already discussed at the April European Council, and we very soon expect the Draghi report on competitiveness. So the Letta report is on the single market. The Draghi report is on competitiveness, and so Cyprus and its trio partners are assuming the presidency at this very important time in which we are called to deliver a better union for our citizens. What are the priorities of Cyprus? So as you know, all presidencies, their task is to act as honest brokers, to represent the interests of all member states, small member states and big member states, and to advance the agenda, the legislative agenda of the Council. At the same time, every member state wants to leave its own footprint during its presidency, and so does the Cyprus presidency. An important element in our case is our geographical position. We are the member state of the European Union at the most southeastern corner of the Union, an integral part of this important region of the Eastern Mediterranean. And sometimes it's forgotten, but this is a region that is the European Union's neighborhood. And it's a turbulent region, but it's also a region of many promises. We now have war. It's important to also remember that the European Union is facing war on two sides of its borders. And so we very much want to bring that perspective in the European Union during our presidency. So we want to put emphasis on the relations between the European Union and the southern neighborhood, between the European Union and the Gulf, the Gulf Cooperation Council. Also because if we look at many of the challenges that the European Union has been facing, let's take the migration crisis, for example, the root causes, to a very large extent, are in this neighborhood. And Cyprus has consistently raised this point with Brussels and the importance of engaging as a union with our partners in the region on an equal footing, as equal partners, and have very much a strategic partnership with them. And the latest, in the last few months, we've had some important developments on that front. We had the very important visit by the President of the European Commission with leaders, including the President of the Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Nikos Christodoulidis, both to Egypt and to Lebanon. And we've also had, the very important initiative by Cyprus, the Amalthea Cyprus Maritime Corridor, which we have put together to provide a supplementary route for the delivery of crucial humanitarian assistance to the citizens of Gaza, because we consider it to be our moral duty to our region. And this initiative that we've operationalized together with the European Union, and that's an important element. We've worked together with the European Union, with the President of the European Commission, to operationalize it with other important partners, such as the United Arab Emirates, the United States, the Netherlands is part of this initiative. And it very much demonstrates what we've been saying for years, that Cyprus is very much a bridge between this crucial region and the European Union. So that is an emphasis we want to put during our presidency on the external relations part. Now, other important elements for us are, for example, and I'm giving some examples because we are now working on the TRIO program. And we very soon start the consultations, and we want them to be very open consultations, reach out to society and citizens while we're working on them on our own priorities and program. But an important element for us is the social dimension of the European Union, the social dimension of EU policies. This crisis that the European Union has been facing in recent years has had an impact on European citizens that we must identify and we must effectively address. And so we want to put an emphasis on the social aspect of policies, on issues like health, on issues like employment, on issues such as also agriculture. We've seen the latest developments with regards to agriculture. Issues like security is also an important aspect. So from maritime security to food security. So those are all important aspects of the priorities that we are working on for the Cyprus presidency.
I have a lot of follow-up questions regarding this. First things first, I paid a visit to a political scientist here in Nicosia last week, Hubert Faustman. And he was telling me what you're kind of saying, that Cyprus is the eye in the storm, with all the wars raging around your island. First, I thought it would be just the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war or the Israel-Gaza-Iran war, but it's still the impact of the Syrian war, and you even have your own Cyprus problem. How are you dealing with all these wars affecting your country?
First of all, we are part of this region. This is our neighborhood. We are familiar with it. We have, and this is an important aspect also of what we are trying to bring to the European Union. We have historically excellent relations with our neighbors. They are relations based on mutual trust and also on a common vision for our region, which is one of challenge but also one of opportunity. And in recent years, we have worked very closely with our partners in the region in what I like to call microlateralism. It's the trilateral cooperation mechanisms that we have set up, Cyprus, Greece, together with Jordan, together with Egypt, together with Israel, in some of these trilateral cooperation mechanisms that cover a broad range of cooperation fields. We have the participation of other member states. For example, France has participated in the Cyprus, Greece, Egypt mechanism on focusing very much on security issues. We've had the United States that has participated in the trilateral with Israel. The way we see our role, as I've mentioned also through when we mentioned the Amalthea Cyprus Maritime Initiative, is how do we become actors of stability. We see ourselves as pillars of stability in this region, of cooperation with our partners, and of trying to promote a common vision of this region as a region of stability, as a region of prosperity. You've mentioned the Cyprus question. We could not talk about Cyprus in this region and of Cyprus as a member of the European Union without discussing the Cyprus question. And your visit is very timely. 2024 is an important year for Cyprus. It's the year where we celebrate 20 years since our accession in the European Union, which, as we often say, has been the greatest diplomatic achievement since our independence in 1960. It's also a deeply poignant year for us because it is the 50th anniversary since the Turkish invasion in 1974, and it also marks 50 years of continuing occupation of an EU member state, and it's important to remember that, continuing occupation of EU territory by a third country. 50 years of violation of international law on the European continent. And so President Christodoulidis was elected at the end of February, assumed his duties in March, and his number one priority, our number one priority, is to break the stalemate in the negotiations, and this is the longest stalemate that we have had in the history of the negotiations for the Cyprus question. For us, the status quo in Cyprus is neither viable nor sustainable, and it's also important to remember that it's not static either. Last August, as I'm sure you know, we had the violations by the Turkish army in the buffer zone where UN peacekeepers were attacked. And I think that very much demonstrates what I've mentioned, that the status quo is not static in Cyprus, and that we absolutely need to have reunification on this island, to reunify the country, its people, and so President Christodoulidis, since day one, has been working tirelessly to, first of all, have the appointment of a UN envoy. That was an important element. It's important to remember that negotiations on the Cyprus question are under the UN auspices. The agreed framework for the negotiations is the relevant UN Security Council resolutions that call for a bizonal, bicommunal federation with political equality as defined by the UN Security Council resolutions, and also in accordance with EU law, values, and principles, because the Cyprus question is a European question, that is a European problem that requires European solutions. And this is also something that we've put on the table emphatically over the last months, that we would like to see greater EU involvement for an array of reasons, because the Cyprus question is a European problem, but also because of EU-Turkey relations, which for us, those two processes, EU-Turkey relations and the Cyprus question, are two processes that are directly linked, and we would like to see in a gradual and mutually beneficial way progress on both paths. And so we had the appointment of the UN envoy, and we are very pleased with that, and we're working closely with Mrs. Olguin, a very experienced diplomat, and we're doing everything in our power to facilitate her work. And at the same time, we've been working with our European partners to find ways that the European Union can use all the tools at its disposal at all stages, and this is something that was part of the June European Council conclusions, and most recently we had very important conclusions, European Council conclusions in April, that very much state this, that that the European Union has said that it is ready to engage with Turkey, to have a positive agenda with Turkey, and that this goes hand in hand also with progress on the Cyprus question. The President Christodoulidis also, with the appointment of the UN envoy, announced 14 measures for our Turkish Cypriot compatriots, very much to send a positive message. They are measures that cover a broad range of fields. We worked on them together with our Turkish Cypriot compatriots. We've had regular meetings with them. We've received proposals from them. And so we've addressed issues that relate to health, that relate to pensions, for example, that relate to issues of education. And I have to say that the implementation of those measures is proceeding well. We are monitoring closely their implementation. And so the number one priority for us is the resumption of negotiations in order to reach a comprehensive settlement in line with UN Security Council resolutions that ends this 50-year division. And this would send such a resounding message of peace in this region. And a final point on this, if Cyprus, a divided island, a divided member state of this union, was able to have this initiative, the Amalthea-Cyprus Maritime Corridor Initiative, imagine how much more we could deliver for the region, for the European Union, as a reunited island. There is a lot of untapped potential there, and we are deeply cognizant of that.
You've worked and lived in Brussels. You know Western European perspective, and since you're from Cyprus, you know Southeastern perspective. Mm-hmm. What you're saying now about the division of Cyprus and the current status quo for many years, I don't think we in Western Europe realize that what's happening here is according to you, and please correct me if I'm over-exaggerating a little bit, but what I hear here is that you're talking about a Turkish invasion 50 years ago, an occupation, and from Turkish perspective, it's a liberation. Those are exactly the terms we're hearing nowadays in Europe regarding Russia-Ukraine. So are you saying that sometimes, or in this case, Brussels is measuring with double standards?
I think that the European Union, the international community, has a very clear position on the Cyprus question. It is a problem of invasion and occupation. It is a problem of violation of international legality. The European Union has, over the years, very clearly stated that. In Protocol 10 of the Act of Accession of Cyprus, which is, as you know, primary law, there is reference there to the agreed basis, bizonal, bicommunal federation with political equality. We have the numerous Security Council resolutions, and I have to say that on the side of our partners, of our fellow member states, there is a very clear, very principled position on the Cyprus question. And I think another important element here is, and we need to be very clear-eyed when we're discussing these issues. At the time when international legality in Ukraine is being shattered, is being violated in such a brutal way, and we see the security dimension, and we as Cypriots, we understand it perfectly well. We need to be absolutely clear in our position wherever there is a violation of international legality, whether it's the case of Cyprus, whether it's the case of Ukraine. That is the way we uphold international legality, which is at the heart of the European Union project. And we must never forget also that the European Union is, above all, a project of peace, a project of reunification. And Cyprus and the Cypriot people very much see to that reunifying power of the European Union. And I think when we acceded, that was very much a hope we had. And, you refer to the different perspectives, Western European Union member states and the Southern and the Eastern. But what I've seen is that no matter where in the European Union we come from, there is a clear position on issues of international law. And also, let's not forget that the memories of the Second World War are not that far. Like, let's take Germany, for example, and Berlin, the unification of Berlin. And that is a memory that's very much alive in Europe. And this year, we've had some very important official visits in Cyprus. We had the first visit by a German president. President Steinmeier was here. We had the president of Estonia here. We've had also the visit, I just came back from Poland. I was accompanying President Christodoulidis in a historic visit also, the first ever visit by a Cypriot president in Poland. Everywhere we have been in Europe, we have heard a very clear message on the Cyprus question, and also on the EU commitment to reunification in Cyprus. And most recently, this was reiterated in very clear terms by the European Council in the April conclusions.
Another question, something I'm trying to grasp here, and I'm here for a week now, so I'm not a Cyprus expert, and that's why I'm happy to talk to you. You were mentioning 2012 when the first Cyprus presidency took place. There was in very stormy times with financial crisis. We had the bailout, And then there was the feeling here in Cyprus that the other European countries, especially in the West, maybe let Cyprus a little bit down. Then Russia came in with this loan, financial support. And where I'm going is that I'm amazed by the fact that after the invasion of Russia and Ukraine, we had, I think, 12 or 13 sanction packages, and Cyprus supported all of them. And maybe once or twice there was a discussion, a debate, but it looks like you totally moved away from Russian influence. I know there are still some connections with the church, and there are still probably powerful oligarchs. But to me, how is it possible psychologically that you're moving forward so fast and getting away from Russia so fast? Do you understand why it's surprising if you sum this up?
Perhaps from the outside, but from the inside, I will try to explain. Cyprus is an EU member state. It was a great aspiration for Cypriots to join the European Union. We believe deeply in the European Union project. You referred to the economic crisis. Was it hard? Yes. Great challenge? Yes. It came at a great cost. But Cypriots are resilient people, and we very much turned that crisis into an opportunity on many fronts. Into an opportunity to diversify our economy, which we have done successfully, into an opportunity to take concrete action to clear any doubt with regards to what you referred about relations with Russia. Were there mistakes in the past? Yes. Have those mistakes been addressed? I believe so, and we are continually addressing it. I believe a page has been turned. You referred to sanctions, and it very much goes back to the previous point we were discussing. Ukraine is a question of violation of international legality. Cyprus could not take a different position because we are victims of international legality and invasion, and we have proven it in practice. With regards to Ukraine, from day one, we took a very clear, principled position, and we delivered on it. You referred to the 13 sanctions packages. Cyprus part of the consensus. We're now discussing the 14th package. We're engaging constructively in all of those discussions. All member states, because these are, as you know, complex discussions, technical discussions that cover so many policy fields. So, of course, every single member state will state or will raise questions so that they're addressed. What is important is unity. The power of the European Union is unity and solidarity, and we stand firmly behind that. The Cyprus government and this president is very committed and has said repeatedly, nothing and no one is above the reputation and the name of Cyprus. And the president, the government, we have taken concrete action. There is now ongoing cooperation also with the government of the United States. I don't know if that was raised in your discussions with the FBI, with the Department of Justice. We're working very closely to address those issues.
If I may interrupt you, that's amazing, because you moved away from a totally different influence sphere you were in the 80s, for instance, and so fast, and still you have parties connected to left, maybe I put it a little bit blunt, left communist connections. You have the church connections. We're not Orthodox in the Netherlands. We don't feel what you might be experiencing. That you did this so fast must have been a psychologically turn as well for the citizens, that suddenly Russia is bad.
I think because these decisions were presented from the prism that I have mentioned, the Cypriot people stood behind the decisions and supported them. Of course, there is cost involved in all of these decisions, but it's a cost that we have been willing to bear. And at the same time, we have worked, as I've said, very much to diversify our economy and the growth. The economy is experiencing growth, always with the challenges that all economies nowadays in the European Union are facing, and that is why these discussions that are taking place in Brussels about the single market, about competitiveness, about also the delivering to our citizens. We must never forget this as a European Union. These decisions are not in a vacuum in Brussels. These decisions are like a web from each and every EU member state that have to lead to Brussels. And this is also precisely the reason why these elections, the upcoming European elections, are so crucial, in my opinion, because the European Union is, in my opinion, at an inflection point. These elections are important for the citizens also to send a message, for the citizens to be part of the decision making, and this is very much a message that we are putting out there.
If I can raise one more topic with two questions. It's regarding the migration deal that you made with the EU and with Lebanon. My first question will be, is it working?
So let me very quickly go through the steps that led to the important visit by the President of the European Commission and President Christodoulidis to Lebanon. So Cyprus has been facing in recent years, as has the whole of Europe, but Cyprus is a frontline member state in this region of the world, the migratory crisis. And it's a problem that has had various stages, phases, if I may say. We are the number one member state in terms of percentage of asylum seekers. And you have to always remember the size of Cyprus and that we are a divided member state. And we don't exercise, the government cannot exercise effective control on part of its territory because of Turkish occupation. And for many years, we had migratory flows from Turkey through the occupied areas into the government control areas. We worked also with the European Union to address that, and this government also worked very methodically, both on, for example, the speed at which we examine, but also a number of other measures, and working with the European Union in order to address that problem. In recent months, we have been experiencing migratory flows of primarily Syrian migrants that go through Lebanon by sea, so it's a sea route to Cyprus. And within 20 days, in April, we had about 3,000 migrants arriving in this way. So for us, it was an extremely serious development. And we worked on various levels. So we worked together with the government of Lebanon. We have historically very close relations with the Lebanese governments, with Lebanon, with the government, but also with the people. In the 90s, but also in 2006, we hosted, during the wars, we hosted thousands of Lebanese, because we know what it means to be a refugee. And we also worked very closely with the European Union, with President Ursula von der Leyen, who I have to say immediately understood the challenge for a small member state in this region of the world, being a divided member state. And we worked very closely with the European Commission to put together a package of support of Lebanon. And this is part of the first points we made in our discussion, which is that we need to engage with our regional partners in a strategic way, in a holistic way. So it's not just about assisting Lebanon in managing the huge migration crisis they have, but it's also about supporting Lebanon itself and engaging with Lebanon, having a partnership with Lebanon. It's the same with Egypt, the same with Jordan, two countries, Egypt and Jordan, that are pillars of stability in this turbulent region. And so within very limited number of days, we worked on this package. The President of the European Commission, during the joint visit with our President, presented it. We have to bear in mind that this is a step-by-step process, and the work is continuing. We're still working very closely with the government of Lebanon.
But the inflow stopped.
We are seeing results. We have to be vigilant. We have to keep our eye on what I've mentioned, on the importance of engaging holistically and strategically with our partners in the region. And in doing so, it's not only beneficial for the region and for whichever member state is in the region. It's beneficial for the European Union because, as I've said, this is the region where a lot of the root causes of many of the challenges that the European Union faces are stemming from. And so, yes, we are seeing some results. We are continuing our work and our engagement with neighboring Lebanon.
And that's also my final and follow-up question. As you know, we will get a new government in the Netherlands. We don't know when and how, but it's coming. They even told me. And the new plans are presented. And on migration, this new government wants to go to Brussels. You know how it works in Brussels. And they want to ask for an opt-out solution on migration. You know how it works. You need a treaty change. Then you have to ask all the other member states of the EU if they will allow the other country to do this. It happened with Denmark, but it was when we had the Treaty of Maastricht, so at the beginning of the whole procedure. Would you, as Cyprus, be in favor of an opt-out for the Netherlands? And I wanted to ask you this because you could say you could be against it because right now we're all in the same boat. We have to show solidarity with each other in fighting the migration crisis. So would this be something Cyprus would be in favor of, that one country, in this case the Netherlands, would demand for an opt-out?
It's always tricky to make hypothetical scenarios and address them. But what I can say is that, in all honesty, the discussions in Brussels, and they have been ongoing for many, many years. The pact on migration was on the table for close to 10 years. The discussions have been challenging, and you would expect them to be challenging. But despite that, and in the case of Cyprus, for example, on the pact, we would have preferred on some of the provisions to have taken a different turn. But what is important is that in all in every case, we have been able to deliver and to be united and to find compromises. And that is very much the beauty of the European Union. The reaching of compromises between EU member states behind the good of the Union, the common good. And all EU member states, despite national positions, we've been able to find compromises. On migration, we cannot underestimate the fact that we reached agreement on the pact. It was not a given. There was a time when we thought, will it happen, will it not happen? It happened. The EU delivered. It sets an important framework from where to work. Discussions are ongoing on migration. It's also part of the discussions we're having on the strategic agenda. But I am confident that, as we have done on the past, even on issues where there are disagreements, where there are challenges, we will manage. I don't want to comment on internal politics. Let's see what happens in the elections. But what I can say is this.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask because every member state has a veto right. So you can say it's not in the interest of the EU that one country is dropping out.
Well, so far on migration, we have managed to reach unanimity, and there is also this ongoing discussion. I am often asked in Cyprus about this question about unanimity and qualified majority, and what I always say is that unanimity it's an important part of member states having ownership of decisions, okay? And that over the past years, in discussions that have been very challenging in Brussels, we have managed to reach unanimity. We're always ready to discuss constructively, but the QNV is not the panacea. It will not solve all the problems. The main issue is deciding what our goals are, what our objectives, what our vision is for the next 20, 30 years. See our policies in that light, and see also the impact of those objectives on the policies. And the last thing to discuss is the issue of the decision making.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me in this beautiful building. It looks really cozy to me. And I hope you will invite and have a lot of important people here after me during your presidency in 2026. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I look forward to welcoming you back, possibly during our presidency. We will be inviting journalists from all EU member states, and so you're always welcome back.
I will ask the new Prime Minister if I'm willing to join. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.